So thank you very much for those interested few who have taken on the elements once again here in Sydney. I think you might have been lucky enough to see on our Instagram the lads here paddling their way down through the troughs, because that's about what it's been like since we opened on the 1st of March. So March, we are now nearly 6 weeks old, and thank you to all those who've been good enough to come along and to drink some of our 42 beers. One of the fun parts of what we do is to get to meet people who are brewing in the brewing industry and supporting that and working in that. David and Helen Black have been doing it for some time, and fortunate enough, I think, Helen, we met you at Gab's first, briefly. Yes, been in communication. And we are great fans of Coastal Brewing. So the first month we were open, we didn't have a Brewery Mate of the Month because we're still finding our way and making sure that our 42 taps actually worked, and that we had some great staff who would help make all the processes work, and a lot of people behind the scenes who've helped with that. So this month though, thank you very much to Helen and David for taking the leap of faith and braving the elements to get down here from Forster to give us a bit of an overview about Coastal Brewing, because we know there are now something like well over 500 independent breweries around Australia. And like I said, one of their challenges is to have more than just a specialty, to have a whole range of quality beers. And I think that's something that Coastal's achieved. We're very pleased and proud to have 5 of their beers on taps 1 to 5 at half price tonight. And throughout the month of April, the tasting panel for Coastal will be 2 for 1 or half price, to allow people to try 5 of their beers and have a look. And I hope Liquor Emporium next door have actually put some of your packaged stock in there as well if people want to buy some afterwards. So hopefully it's a partnership. I think the Australian whiskey industry was a good example, where old Bill used to say, you know, rising tide floats all boats. So it's really about a rising tide. We're here to provide 42 independent taps for independent brewers. That's what it's about for us. We hope that people enjoy it. It's a long-term project, as I'm sure starting a brewery is. And I'll hand over to David Black to tell you about that journey for Coastal.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thank you for being an independent venue serving independent beer. I think I think all lovers of beer need to support independent venues, and it's great to see you all here tonight. So Coastal Brewing. So Helen and I used to have corporate jobs, real jobs. I was an accountant, Helen was in marketing and comms. We lived in Sydney. We braved the traffic as we did tonight, and probably the traffic on the run-in tonight probably reminded us why we moved up to Forster and got out of Sydney and the traffic. But we had a couple of holidays in the US. I guess really fell in love with craft beer and the craft brewing industry. We were lucky enough that we had a small holiday place up at Forster that we got up to fairly regularly. And eventually we decided we'd had enough of the corporate life in Sydney, battling the commute and the long hours, and that we wanted to semi-retire to Forster to open a brewery. Don't ever let anyone tell you that opening a brewery is semi-retirement, because we probably work 3 times as many hours now as we ever did when we were in Sydney. We I guess I'd been a keen home brewer for 20 odd years. Never did it too seriously, never entered in any comps or anything. It was all just a fun sort of thing. But I did, out of interest, do a graduate certificate, then a grad diploma in brewing from Federation Uni in Ballarat. That sort of, I guess, got us started, and then, as I say, we done a couple of holidays in the US, fell in love with the industry, and wanted to get out of Sydney. Forster didn't have a brewery. Sounded like a good idea. Sounded like something we could make work. So we took the jump, gave up the day jobs, moved up the coast, and opened Coastal Brewing. So yes, I moved up in sort of December 2016. Helen kept the day job for a bit longer to keep a little bit of money coming in whilst we were getting things off the ground. We did the build out, and we opened in July 2017. When we opened, we had 2 beers, Town Lager, I think you guys have got on tap tonight, and Boomerang Beach, our pale ale, and we sort of built from there. When we opened the tap room, we had no furniture. Furniture hadn't arrived. So the first weekend it was standing room only. But ever since then we've sort of built fairly steadily. We haven't rushed, we haven't overextended ourselves, but now we sell beer all the way down to the Victorian border, up to the Queensland border, and sort of inland to Armidale, Tamworth, Dubbo, those sort of places inland. We brew a wide range of beers. We've got a whole bunch of different markets. Some of you might know that Forster's a fairly seasonal and fairly tourist town. Population for most of the year is probably 20,000, and maybe 19,000 of those are retirees. So things like our Town Lager and our Blackhead Milk Stout, which is a easy drinking stout, almost sort of halfway between a dark beer and an old sort of style beer and a stout, are really popular locally sort of year round. But in the middle of summer, over Christmas, Forster grows from 20,000 to about 220,000 people as Sydney and Newcastle migrate up the coast, and Brisbane and guys migrate down. So we obviously brew all the way through the heavily hopped beers, the stouts. We do a little bit of barrel aging. So we have a really wide range of beers. I think we've got 16 in cans in the tap room at the moment, and about another 8 on tap. So all the way from light Berliner Weisses at 2.8% all the way up to the rum barrel-aged barley wine that we packaged this morning, which is going to be our Gabs beer for this year. That's 11%. So a really broad range of beers that we do. I guess some of the challenges when we started planning, there was probably 200 breweries in Australia. As Steve mentioned, there's depending on how you cut the numbers, somewhere between 500 and 700 at the moment. So the support of guys like yourself who turned out tonight is really important to us, and thank you very much for coming along. We really do appreciate it. But it's a fun industry. It's good. We enjoy what we're doing. I said at the start we probably work more hours than we ever did, but we enjoy every hour. Or maybe not every hour, but we enjoy the vast majority of the hours. And it's good fun. It's enjoyable, and it's we never have an empty fridge at home, which is always good. And we're small enough that we get to brew what I want to brew. And so generally, very odd exception, but 99% of the beers that we brew are beers that I want to brew and I want to drink. So, which is great. I'm more than happy to try and answer any questions if anybody wants to ask about anything in particular, or if there's anything I've missed that people want me to talk about. Yeah, we're pretty meticulous in terms of the quality side of things, and pretty meticulous all the way through. And given we're a small operation, we're fairly close on it, so we probably only dumped, I think we've dumped 3 beers since we opened. One of them was pretty soon after we opened, and we brewed a double batch of Boomerang Beach Pale Ale, which is our sort of hoppy American Pale Ale. And yeah, I think it was the second or third brew that we'd done. In those days, to do a double brew used to take us, we'd start at 6 a.m. and probably finish at 11 p.m. because we took our time on everything, and we didn't start the second brew until we finished the first batch. So it was a long day. Pitched the yeast, went home happy, everything had been good. Came back about 2 weeks later to brew a Hefeweizen, went for the yeast for the Hef, and yeah, didn't have any Hefeweizen yeast and had a few more bricks of American ale yeast than we planned on having. So we pitched the Hefeweizen yeast into the American Pale Ale, so that unfortunately that went down the drain. And like we've had a couple of others that we've dumped on the way through, but touch wood, out of the number of beers we brewed, a pretty good hit rate. I guess that's one measure of failure. Yeah, the other measure of failures is what taste fine but don't work commercially. I guess we've got sort of a few different types of beers we do. We've got some seasonals that we do year round. Some core range that we do year round. They're things that sell day in, day out, and we've got some seasonals that we find sell really well seasonally, but who wants to drink there are a few people who want to drink a barrel-aged stout in the middle of summer, but that's probably the minority of people rather than the majority. So we tend to do the darker, heavier beers in winter. And then we have some beers that we might brew once or twice. They taste fine, they're good beers, but for whatever reason they just don't hit the mark in terms of the size of the market. We did a hoppy American brown ale. It's a great beer. I loved it. People who liked hoppy American brown ales loved it. Unfortunately, there's not that many people who like hoppy American brown ales. So it's a good beer, but it's not a beer that commercially is a success. So I guess you could mark that type of thing down as a failure in a way.
But you clearly have a wide range of different types of beers. How many people do you employ?
How many people do we
employ?
Okay, so we're a fairly lean team. So Helen does sales and marketing, and she has a guy called Ross who works for us, who works sort of 2 to 3 days a week helping with deliveries and a little bit on the sales side. And I do most of the brewing, and we employed an apprentice brewer who's been with us about 11 months now. So James and I do all the brewing, and that's it. So we do all of our own deliveries. So anywhere in New South Wales or the ACT you find our beer, it's been delivered by us. I guess one of the things that we sort of pride ourselves on is the quality of the beer, and the fact that we do keep it cold from the minute we package it all the way through the process, from the minute we package it all the way through delivery. So we do all the deliveries ourselves. We don't deliver anywhere that we can't get to in sort of half a day or less. So the kegs are loaded that morning, and they're at venues in 3 or 4 hours, so they stay cold.
Is it hard to name your beers, and how do you name it?
Yeah, so all the beers we've got, some of them will appear to have weird names. We have a beer called Blackhead Milk Stout. Who names a beer after a pimple on someone's face? But they're all actually named after with one exception, they're all named after local places or landmarks or that type of thing. So Blackhead is a place, really nice beach. Harts Point is another sort of local landmark, local area. We did one beer that we didn't name after after a place which we named after a New Zealand hop because we did it for a New Zealand hop festival that was hosted in Melbourne. But yeah, everything else is named after local places.
What was your favorite beer you've ever brewed and why? That question I know.
I'm a lover of sort of hoppy beers, particularly hoppy West Coast. Although I have come round to Neepers. Took me a while. For a long time I swore I wouldn't brew a Neeper. But we've done a couple of double IPAs. One that is named after a local place. So there's a local place called Darawang. So we brewed a double IPA called Daradank, which was obviously a fairly dank beer. And then we brewed another double IPA called the Ruins. Both West Coast, but that's sort of my go-to if I have to pick a style. But I guess like most people, it depends on what you're doing, whether you're having it with food. I was saying before we canned our Gabs beer this morning. Off the canning line, I tried the rum barrel aged barley wine at about 6:30 this morning. And to be honest, 6:30 is probably not a good time to try and drink rum barrel aged barley wine. It tasted fantastic when I tried it last night. It didn't taste trash hot when I was washing the toothpaste out my mouth this morning.
So, the key lime pie.
Yeah.
Where did the idea come from? What are the technical parts in making a beer like that?
So key lime pie is probably about the most controversial beer we've ever done. We've got probably 65% of people who absolutely love it, and probably 35% of people who just, it doesn't hit the mark for them.
We love it.
We, as I said, we've done a couple of trips to the US, and key lime pie is a big Florida thing, and we like key lime pie. We generally have something like that for dessert at Christmas, and we thought we could deconstruct the key lime pie into a beer. So it's got biscuit malt and cinnamon in the brew to try to give that sort of pie crust sort of flavour. It's got vanilla vanilla and lactose actually in to try to give that sort of creaminess that you get from that sort of dessert. And it has got 168 kilo of key lime puree in 2,000 litres of beer, which is why it is so lime. And it is very lime forward, which if you love lime, makes it an awesome beer. If you're not keen on lime, it's actually brewed as whilst it comes across as tart and sour, it's actually not brewed as a sour. It's brewed as a normal beer. The base beer was effectively fermented as an IPA. It was hopped with some New Zealand Hort 9909 hops, which sort of give that sort of lime flavour from the hops. Hopped at sort of pretty much IPA levels, hence we've called it a key lime pie IPA. But then the lime, it does sort of take over a little bit after that. So it's a good beer. It's a real conversation starter. Whether people like it or don't like it, it's a conversation starter.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you, and thanks to everyone again for coming along.
So, just another thanks from me. Greatly appreciate you braving the road down on a horrible night, and the great information you've imparted. And in some ways, it still seems to me that this brewery sprung out of nowhere, but I'm sure 20 years of brewing yourself is what created it and led to it. And I think a lot of people who have anything to do with craft beer have had a long personal experience, something to do with brewing. Helen, I know that you're a huge part of this partnership as well that makes Coastal. I think we all understand that the promotion and commercial side of it can be just as challenging, just as much hard work. But I think everyone here wishes you all the best and future success. And if you haven't raised a glass of the Key Lime Pie IPA, I suggest you do and try it, because it's very lime forward and it is remarkable and a great talking point. And thanks again for coming along here tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks very much.
Key lime pie all round. Anyone would like one? Belgian